Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this live stream demo event. I'm Ryan Pretzel. I'm the president and CEO of Creative Liquid, and we want to thank everyone for joining us. Over the next about 15-20 minutes or so, it's not going to be that long an event, we're going to talk about what live streaming is and give you kind of an idea of how it may be able to help your organization, whether you be a company, a small business, a nonprofit, or even a government client. We're going to kind of go over the ins and outs of what live streaming is and kind of how it differs from virtual meeting platforms such as Zoom, Google Meet, WebEx, things like that everyone is trying to clamor for these days. So before we get into that, I did want to kind of just introduce who we are. If you're not familiar with Creative Liquid, we are a digital media firm. We specialize in video production and web development, and we're based in Alexandria, Virginia. We've been in business for about 15 years. We've been live streaming for a variety of clients, both big and small, for over a decade. So it's something that we have a lot of experience with. We've kind of kicked the tires on a variety of different streaming techniques, technologies, equipment, things like that. And so we're going to leverage our experience to kind of give you some background and some information that we think you may find helpful. So here's a look at the rundown of the topics we're going to try and cover today. First, we're going to talk about what is live streaming. We're going to kind of define that. Then we're going to talk about what a content delivery network is, often referred to as a CDN. What are the technical requirements for streaming? That's a question we get asked quite frequently. Remote participation. My colleague Julia Cowell, who's one of our producers and our post-production manager, she's going to join us remotely in just a few minutes. Integrating graphics, branding, and slides. So if you're doing a presentation, how to share your screen or how can we integrate PowerPoint slides, very similar to what I'm doing right here. Then video on demand. So recording your live stream. This is a very simple thing. For some reason, this seems to something that comes up quite often. People asking if we can record their stream, and yes, we'll explain how that works. Audience interaction. So this is going to kind of explain what the difference is between a live stream and audience interaction with a live is like a meeting platform where everyone is kind of in a meeting room together. Privacy options, and then we're going to wrap things up with some post-event analytics, so talking about what you get after the event. And then we will also answer your questions today. So if you have questions during the stream, please email us at info@creativeliquid.com. We're going to be watching our email as those come in. And if you get your question in before the end of the event, we'll answer it on the program. If we get it after we've gone off the air, we'll respond to you afterwards, so don't worry about that. But please send us your questions at info@creativeliquid.com. And just so everyone knows, I'm actually switching our live stream from my computer right here. Our web team is actually monitoring us on the server side, and then my colleague Julia is going to join us remotely in a moment. So there's actually 3 of us putting this together, but you're going to see me look at my computer from time to time because this is kind of how I control things. So first, let's talk about what is live streaming. And what I try to explain to people is live streaming is a one-way broadcast. So think of watching television at home, a news program, sporting event. You are the audience participant. You're watching a program that's coming into you. That's essentially what live streaming is. It's great when you need to reach a distributed audience. So the audience can be anywhere in the country. They can be pretty much anywhere in the world, as long as the service isn't blocked. And you can reach that audience all at the same time in real time. And the audience is there just to kind of absorb the information that you're sending out there. So it's perfect for all hands meetings. It's perfect for trainings, presentations. If you have an organizational message that you need to get out to either, if you're an association, to your membership, or if you are trying to get a message out to other businesses, if you're doing B2B transactions, or if you're a nonprofit and trying to reach out to your volunteers or your donors or whatever your audience is, that's what you're trying to achieve with a live stream. It's controlled, it's produced. We're actually using some of our camera equipment to produce this today. And what's different between this and a live meeting is we tend to be sending things out in high definition. It tends to be a little bit better video quality, and when we can use microphones and things like that as well. Obviously, right now, not everyone has a studio built in their house. I'm actually in my basement, but we have access to equipment. This can also be done with just a web camera, and we've been doing quite a few of these live streams with web cameras as well. So, we'll talk a little bit about that and how you can stream even if you don't have the technology. So as I mentioned, live streaming is when you broadcast a program to your audience. It's a one-way communication. There is some audience interaction, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but for the most part, your video is going out one way. Video teleconferencing platforms such as WebEx, Google Meet, Zoom, those are meeting platforms. So everyone comes into the meeting and they can participate, everyone can share, different people can share their screen, things like that. That is not how a live stream works. So a live stream is not going to work the same way that like a WebEx would work. So let's say you want to host an event, but you don't know where your event is going to be hosted, or you don't know where you want to put the event. So at Creative Liquid, we have a service called Fed Streaming, and I'm going to talk about it just very briefly. And this is a website where we can custom brand an event page for your stream. So the banner up here at the top that has our logo, that's actually replaceable with your branding. We title it. These can be links to your social media. This is where the video player goes in the center. Information can go down to the bottom. We can have links that go back to your website. You can put downloadable attachments. And then for interaction, you can even have an ask a question button. There is a chat feature. We'll talk more about audience interaction in just a moment. But Fed Streaming is a service that we use that allows us to live stream events for clients that may not have the technical support to necessarily host it on their own website. So, that is an option. We can give you an embed code. Our web team can work with you to get that set up. But if you don't have that and you don't want to do that, that's not a problem. We have a service that you can use to host your live event. And we set it up. It's turnkey. We send you a link. You can then distribute that to your audience, and then all they have to do is click on it to tune in. One thing to point out is, unlike some of the meeting platforms, no software is required to install to watch most live streams with most CDNs. It works across mobile devices, tablets, Mac, PC, computers, and it's as simple as going to the link, opening it in your browser, and watching the video. So that's one of the other benefits of live streaming, especially if you're using a work laptop or a computer that does not allow you to install software applications, whether it be for a meeting platform or something else. With streaming, that usually is not an issue, and the video does tend to stream out in 1920 by 1080, which is high definition. Okay? So next, I'm just going to look at my notes. We're going to move on to what is a content delivery network. And we get this question quite a bit when we're trying to explain to people how streaming works. So the CDN is the server that basically is distributing your stream. We're using a white label CDN today, which means you don't see any branding from the CDN on it. But there's other CDNs out there. So if you want to reach your social media audience, Facebook Live is a CDN. YouTube is a CDN. So there are options out there that if you have a large audience on one of those platforms, that may be a good option for you to stream to. And those platforms don't cost anything. So we can basically pull a server address when you go to set up an event on one of those platforms, and then we use software that sends the broadcast out. That can stream to those. And that's what allows us to integrate graphics and broadcast cameras and other things like that. So that's what the CDN is. The CDN will also oftentimes record your program. Most services, that's kind of standard these days for the CDN to record it. The free options out there like Facebook Live, we've been doing a lot of those for a couple of clients recently. Some of the setup is a little more limited than what we get with some of the other CDNs, but there are options basically for every budget. And we've been doing streaming for a very long time. The cost of actually getting your broadcast out has come down substantially. This used to be, we used to have to calculate viewer hours and how many people were going to watch, and then we could give you an estimate on how much the CDN was going to cost. Those days are pretty much gone. It's gotten a lot more cost effective for people to be able to use a CDN and to stream their event out. So now let's talk a little bit about just some of the technical requirements. When we produce a stream event for a client, they don't have to worry about any of this back-end work unless they're going to host it on their website. Then our web team will work with them to provide an embed code. But if we're doing everything turnkey, there's nothing for you to have to worry about. The one thing we do need is an internet connection. So if we're going to be streaming from your office or during these times when everyone is working from home, if you're going to be streaming an event from your home or wherever your computer is, you do need a broadband internet connection. And we always ask clients to first test their speed. There's a few ways you can do this. Speedtest.net is easy. You just go to it in any browser. There will be a button, hit go, and it will do a speed test. It's going to give you a download speed, and it's going to give you an upload speed. We're concerned about the upload speed because when you are streaming, you're sending a signal to the server. So the upload speed tends to be lower in most homes. That's the number that we really care about. And when you are doing a live stream, you want to make sure no one that's on your internet connection is uploading large documents or sending mass files or anything like that. It's not so much a problem if people are necessarily watching, it's like a streaming service or watching video. It's more an issue of people who are uploading content. So that's why we talk a little bit about why having a good internet connection is necessary. Now, if you're going to do a streaming event from your office or a meeting event facility such as a hotel or any sort of conference facility, just make sure they have a strong enough internet connection. And if you are working with us, well, we are always happy to engage the IT staff at whatever facility we're going to be working at in advance, just to ensure everything is working. And oftentimes what we'll do is a site survey, and we'll do a test of the internet connection just to make sure it's going to work. But in terms of other technical requirements, on the client side, there's really not much more you need to worry about. We take care of everything else. You'll get a link that can be distributed to your audience, and that's pretty much all you have to do. Okay, so we're going to transition a little bit now, and I'm going to bring in my colleague, Julia, and I'm going to switch her in here. She's coming in remotely.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing good.
So, Julia, obviously we've been doing a lot of these remote sessions recently. So I'm going to toss it over to you, and I'm going to let you kind of talk. Let's see, what topics do we have? You're going to talk about remote participants first, which it's funny how we planned it that way.
Yep.
And then a couple other things, and then we'll come back. I'll cover a couple of other quick topics, and then we'll do a little bit of audience Q&A. So I'm going to toss it over to you and let you talk a little bit about remote participation.
Sounds great. All right, guys. So obviously you can remotely participate in a live stream. We do that through a software platform that is integrated into our live program. And you can join a live stream from any mobile device. So that's that could be your tablet, that could be your smartphone, that could be your laptop, which is what I am using right now. So next thing I want to talk about is best practices for setting up your video shot, because we are streaming at a slightly higher quality, a slightly higher resolution than, say, Zoom or WebEx. So we really want to make sure that you are going to look your best while you are streaming. And the biggest thing that I see from folks who are remotely connecting is lighting. So a lot of people like to set up their desks, their workstations in front of a window. And let me show you what happens when you try to use your webcam with a window behind you. Notice how my webcam is adjusting for the brightness of the window, and that makes my face a little bit darker, a little bit harder to see. So what we recommend to folks is that you set up with your window or your light source in front of you. That way your face is going to be well lit, it will hopefully be evenly lit, and you are going to look your best. Next thing that I want to talk about is your background. And the main thing there is to minimize distraction. So, we would suggest avoid doors or high traffic areas so that there's not too much going behind you. And then the other thing to think about, and I think a lot of us who have joined in internet meetings like Zoom or Google Hangouts, try to avoid anything you would not want shown publicly behind you. So that would be, family photos or even company information that you do not want to share publicly on a live streaming platform. Next thing I want to talk about is your audio. One of the biggest concerns that a lot of clients have is they start to hear an echo when they connect to the remote platform. And one of the big reasons for that is that the speakers on your mobile device are pretty good, and they are sending the audio from your microphone back to your microphone, which is picking up a lot so that it is transmitting a clear signal from your voice. So what's happening is the audio from the speakers is going back through the microphone and creating the echo. Now, the best way to minimize that is to use headphones. And right now I have over-the-ear headphones, but if you have earbuds or AirPods, those work perfectly fine. A lot of times those also have a microphone included, so that actually makes the audio that you're sending out that much clearer and the audio that you're receiving that much clearer. Next, I want to talk about integrating graphics into your live stream, because one of the best things about the live streaming platform is that we can tailor it to your unique brand, your unique organization. So this includes things like adding a logo onto the stream. We can add that as a bug that's up all the time throughout the entire presentation. We can actually include that into name graphics or lower thirds, so we can identify presenters. And then we can also include full screen graphics into your presentation with your branding on it. So that could be slideshow presentations. We can do that in a number of different ways. One way is that you can actually share your screen and progress through Keynote or PowerPoint presentations yourself. We can also do that on our end if you prefer us to do that on our side of things. And then the last thing is that we can also include pre-recorded videos. So if you want something really polished, really clean to stream out to folks, we can record that ahead of time. We can integrate those graphics ahead of time and then stream that video out during your live event. So the next thing that I want to talk about that Ryan touched on previously is that video on demand element. Obviously, the best thing about a live stream is that it is live and people can tune in, but in the event that your audience members can't all tune in at the same time, having that video on demand, having that file that you can upload to social media is going to be key to make sure that your entire audience can tune in and watch your message. So we do that in two ways. We record locally on our hardware that we're using for the stream, and then of course the servers that are hosting the stream can also record the live stream that goes out. So that means that you can have an MP4 file or an MOV file of your live stream within hours to sometimes even minutes after the stream has ended, depending on your CDN. And of course, if anything goes wrong with the stream, if your audience members are having a hard time connecting because of their internet, we'll have a clean version that we recorded locally. So no matter what happens during the stream, you will have a clean version for either archiving internally or sharing through your social media platforms. All right, so next we are going to talk about some audience interaction capabilities.
Yeah, so thank you, Julia. And I do have one question that we'll come back to during the Q&A specifically about recording, because we've had this question from a few clients. So I'm going to save that for a moment. But first, audience interaction. So unlike a meeting platform where everyone can essentially be in and raise their hand or ask or speak during like a conference meeting, live streaming is, again, one way. So there are a couple of ways that we can facilitate that, and that can be done with a chat window. It can be embedded right below a video player. We're not using it today, but it is an option, and it is very popular with some clients. The one thing to keep in mind when we use a chat window is that is an unmoderated feature. So know your audience, and it will ask them to put in the screen name when they start using the chat, but keep that in mind. It's the same thing if you're streaming live to Facebook or to YouTube. You can watch for comments in real time that are coming in, and you can respond to those. So that's one way to interact with your audience. Another way, and this is very common for what we do, is we'll put an ask a question button usually on your event page if we're doing it on Fed streaming. And that is a moderated feature. So what happens is they'll click, they'll fill in their name, they'll put in their question, and that gets submitted. And then a moderator who is not part of the stream, or sometimes they can be part of the stream, they are watching for the questions coming in, they're deciding which ones to ask, and then they'll ask them in a moderated fashion. Another way to do it, and we've been doing this a lot with a couple of clients, is where they're doing a two-screen side-by-side like this, where we have someone who remotes in to ask a question, kind of like calling into a radio program, so to speak. So this is another way that the audience can interact. And there are some other interactivity features depending on the CDN that you're using, like polling and that allow, and then integrating your social media such as Twitter into a stream itself. But those are the main ways that we interact with our audience. That does lead me to our next topic, which is talking about privacy. So sometimes you're going to want to live stream, but you're not going to want just everyone to watch it. So there are a couple of really simple privacy solutions that we have. A live stream can be, depending on the CDN again, can be password protected. It can be kept from a broader site. So if you do not want it appearing published on like a YouTube or a Facebook or something like that, that is possible to do. You can also put the embedded stream behind a paywall or some sort of login screen to where the end user has to log in to be able to view the stream. And we can even lock down which sites the embed code can go onto. So we can keep it so it's not just showing up in a bunch of different places, and then we can turn off the features like share and things like that, so people are not sharing your live stream. So that is one thing to keep in mind when it comes to privacy and what you can do with your live stream. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about real quick, and Julia, thanks for hanging in there. The final thing I want to talk about really quick is post-event analytics. So when we get done with the event, we can put together a report that our web team does that tells you how many people watched your stream, so how many unique viewers you had, the total viewer time. So we'll take, if you had a 60-minute event, we'll take the total calculation of how many hours were watched between your entire audience and let you know. That's a good indicator of how long your audience stayed on your live stream. And then we can even tell you where people are watching from. So there's all sorts of information that you can get. And then there's other things you can do, like we had an email capture on our stream today. If people fill out things like that, that would all be part of your analytics report. So at the end of the day, you do get some statistics that show you how effective your stream was. And you can then use that information to kind of determine what you're going to do with your next stream, or other things you can do to kind of tweak your platform or your setup, or how you decided to produce your stream event. So does that sound good to you, Julia?
That sounds great.
Okay. So one question I did have that came in, and this goes back to kind of what you were referring to in terms of recording. We've had a few people tell us that they've been told when they've inquired with folks before about live streaming their event that recording is difficult. That cannot be further from the truth. Julie, do you want to address that, or I'm happy to?
That is a feature that is built in straight into our streaming software. So again, I can actually record all the hardware that I use to stream out your presentation. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of CDNs actually record for you. So I know Facebook Live will record your stream and leave it up on your page. YouTube Live will do the same thing. So recording is absolutely an easy option that we can provide for any live stream.
Correct, and that's the one thing to keep in mind is, when we set up our streaming events for a client, we're always recording, and we always do a primary and a secondary recording. So the primary is always at the computer that the producer is using to facilitate the stream. So we record it there locally. And then we also record on the server side. And the reason why we do both is, one, on the computer we tend to record it at a slightly higher quality than what the server does. The server is recording basically an MPEG-4 file, but we never want to rely on one. Servers are not infallible. We have had server recordings fail, so that way we always have our local recording in the event that there is a server failure, and then we can always upload that for video on demand viewing afterwards. That's the other thing too is, I know you touched on the video on demand side, but when you've done your live stream, you've recorded it, now you can put it out there and your audience can continue to view it. And if someone joins your live stream late, most CDNs now allow them to rewind to the beginning and start watching it. So it's something that it really plays well to your audience, and can be a very effective way to communicate. And then that gives me the one last thing. I was actually talking to a client about this last week, and that is, right now, communicating with your customers and your clients is paramount. And this is, especially if you're a small business and you are trying to let people know your shift in hours or services or whatever that is, you need to get the word out there to people what's going on, because people are turning to social media, people are turning to your website so they can kind of see what is going on. And if you can keep people updated, you can keep revenue coming in the door, and that is the big key. So you need to find a way to adapt and shift, and live streaming can be an effective way for you to very quickly communicate with your audience, whether you're doing it with us or you're doing it on your own. Facebook Live, if you have a following, is a great way to just pop on your phone, connect, let people know what's going on. And that is why this type of communication is so important. So Julie, any final parting words?
I would say two final pieces of advice. Number one, if you're using your mobile device, if you're using your computer to connect, make sure you are looking in the lens of your web camera. Because obviously, if I'm looking at myself on the screen, or if I'm looking at Ryan, I'm not making direct eye contact with the camera, so I'm not making direct eye contact with the audience. And that eye contact is going to be really key to connect to folks. So I know it's hard to talk to that little green dot or the little red dot next to your webcam, but I promise you are going to look better if you do. And then finally, if you are connecting remotely via your phone, make sure you are holding your phone sideways and not vertically, because sideways means that you are going to get a 16:9 aspect ratio. So it's going to look like a video versus turning it on its side and getting like an Instagram story. Don't have an Instagram story.
Yeah, no, and that is, it's so funny how often we have to just tell people when they're remoting into a live stream, if they just turn their device sideways, it will fill the entire screen and we lose the black bars that are on the side. So for video that's going to be watched on a computer screen or even a mobile device, send it out 16:9. Why not? So, Julie, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you have a busy day. You have a live stream coming up in about 90 minutes for one of our clients. I want to thank everyone who joined us today, or if you're watching this on demand, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions for us, please reach out to us at info@creativeliquid.com. Our team is hard at work. We are trying to facilitate as many live stream events as we can for clients. We can do them 100% remotely. As you see today, Julie and I are both completely remote. We're not in the same room. These are very easy for us to walk you through how to set up and how to get going. So thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll see you next time.